So seed starting's in full swing here at Local Color Farms HQ. And generally speaking, things look okay. And by okay, I mean they could be a little better. So I'm going to take some of the things that I've learned over the past week or so, week and a half, and apply them in hopes of having better results with my seed starting. If you like this kind of content of a person consistently making mistakes, having to correct them and redo things, like and subscribe. I'm growing just like my flowers. Watch it happen. Hilarity ensues. The first thing that I learned from my week and a half of seed starting is that while the germination chamber is fantastic at maintaining a consistent humidity and heat, it obviously creates a lot of water, and that water collects on the trays that I'm using and pools around the soil blocks, which is creating a very soggy environment for my flowers. It makes me very concerned about things like dampening off and other humidity-based issues. I have a simple solution I think might work. I did some research and I discovered a product. It's not really a product, it's a type of product known as a capillary mat, which is essentially a type of felt that absorbs the moisture. Usually you use it when you water. You water the mat, it soaks up the water, it distributes the water back to the plant in a consistent manner rather than it like one big drink, which I think is probably going to be better for my flowers overall. So I bought 3 yards of it in hopes of lining the trays with the capillary mat material. One of the other issues that I saw, and this was purely user error, is that some of the larger seeds did not work very well in the tiny little soil blocks. Calendula seeds come to mind. They're very large compared to like a poppy seed or a snapdragon seed. I think they're going to be better suited in the larger block size or in a cell tray. The problem I was getting was very inconsistent germination, where some of them would come up, some of them would just fizzle out. Some of them, when they came up, would take root and do fairly well. Other ones, they'll come up, but they come up upside down so that the root is sticking up, or the root just doesn't get purchased in the block at all. So I'm hoping by using the larger soil blocks, specifically with calendula, that I can mitigate some of those problems. The other issue, and again, this is complete and utter user error, with flowers like scabiosa and bachelor buttons that are a little larger, I probably need to make sure that the seeds are better seated in the soil block. The problem that I'm running into is, again, the flowers are sprouting, but they're not getting purchased in the soil block. They don't take root. They just kind of splay out and then fizzle out. It's very hard to explain. Let me see if I can find an example. I don't know if you can see on this little bachelor button right here, this guy right here. He just didn't do well. He never really got a good root in. His roots stuck out to the side. He didn't make it, obviously. This guy, you can see right there, we see more of the same. I'm hoping by using my trusty dibbler, I can make sure the seeds get into place. And one of the things I love about this thing is it shows you the markings. It has markings on the side that show you how deeply. So if it says how deeply you're going, so if it says 1/4 of an inch, that's right here. It's just this little tip right here, where it says 1/2 inch. That's 1/2 inch. So if you can, there's 1/2 inch, and then there's 1/4 inch, just right there in between. Using a dibbler allows me to create a little hole and put the seed in and really get it in there firmly so that it has its best chance of flowering or sprouting in a healthy manner. And then another issue I had was a little bit of dampening off. And I actually love this stuff. I've used it before in the past with tomatoes, and it's essentially a very light sphagnum moss. It is biologically inert. It's soilless, so it really does a good job at preventing fungal diseases. Like I said before, I've used it before on my vegetable seedlings, and it works really well. I think it's going to work better on some things like where I was trying to use perlite to avoid some of the dampening off issues. So what I'm doing today is looking at what sprouted well, what didn't sprout well, and trying to fill in any gaps that might be in my first succession planting while using the new techniques that I've come across. First, we're going to cut some tray liners out of the capillary matting, in 2 different sizes. We're going to use the white styrofoam meat tray as a template, and we're going to use the green cafeteria tray as a template. In the future, I think I might want to, especially as we expand, I want to buy some mesh bottom 10-20 trays. They have really good drainage, so I'm hoping that working with, in tandem with the germination chamber, I could really create some healthy seedlings. But for now, this is what we have. This is what we're going to use until we start getting our feet under us. We'll worry about expanding when there's something to expand. So I'm going to use my kitchen shears, they're nice and sharp, to cut a template. Wondering if you could use sheets of craft felt or wool felt for the same purpose. I'm also hoping this is going to mitigate the issue that you have with small soil blocks, that they dry out really fast. Like, I'll water them and then the next day I'll need to water them again sometimes. It doesn't really help that they go from a relative humidity of 99% to a relative humidity of about 25 to 30% in the garage. And it's particularly bad right now because I'm running my space heater in here to keep the room warm, because using the big garage heater was gonna put me in the poorhouse. And the space heater does a better job at 1/10 of the power cost. The big garage heater's like 15,000 watts, and that little guy is only 1,500, so it was a no-brainer. Although when it got really cold last week, I was having to run too. The purpose of this whole year is to really drill down these systems so that next year and subsequent years get easier and easier, to figure out what works and what doesn't. And while the germination chamber does work really, really well, it works too well. So let's see how this works. I got a non-Johnny's seed order in. It's Burpee's, which I've used. I like Burpee. They're a pretty good company. Johnny's didn't have, I think it's the Monstro straw flowers. They're really tall ones. They only had the Sultana mix, so I bought some from Burpee. They had them in stock. So we're gonna plant these and see how the new system works. They like to be covered in 1/4 of an inch of fine soil, which is great because the little no damp works as a fine soil. And I'm gonna go ahead and do 80 of these. Alright, before I get started, I'm going to check the straw flower size, seed size, see what kind of cell block I need, because, not cell block, what kind of soil block I need. Okay, these guys are pretty small, so a 3/4 inch should be just fine. Hair always ends up in my soil blocks. It's very strange. So if you'll notice, the capillary mat peeks out just a little bit right here and right here. And that is where the water has been pooling when I put them in the germination chamber. So I think this is going to do I'm hoping this is going to do what I want it to do. The other thing that I'm doing differently is, instead of putting them on trays in here, I'm just gonna put the little foam tray directly into the germination chamber. I think that the added tray created another place for water to pool. So I'm gonna get back to seed starting and see if I can knock all this out. Overall, I'm very pleased with a lot of aspects of my seed starting setup. There's some changes that I'm going to be making as I refine the system, but I think it's a really good first shot. Mach 1, if you will. Mark 1. Mark 1, Mach 1, Mark 1. It's Mark 1. Mark 1! has been pretty okay. I think we can do better. It's always about doing better. Don't necessarily do best, just do better. Until next time, you guys take care of yourselves, and we'll see how this garden grows.